Well, well, well. Just when you thought British politics couldn't get any more dramatic, Nadhim Zahawi has gone and done what every disgraced former minister dreams of doing at 3 in the morning. He has joined Nigel Farage's Reform UK. And if that wasn't enough chaos for one Tuesday, it has absolutely sent the Conservative Party into a complete meltdown. This is the kind of story that makes you wonder whether someone has actually scripted real politics, because honestly, the writers would be sacked for making it too unrealistic. Quick favor, if you are loving this kind of political theatre, hit that subscribe button. Over 94% of viewers have not yet, and it is completely free. Takes a second and means the world to us. If you have subscribed already, brilliant. Now let us crack on with what has become the most embarrassing defection story Westminster has seen in ages. So picture this: Nadhim Zahawi, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, a man who literally oversaw the vaccination program during the pandemic, a chap who has been a fixture in Conservative politics for years, decides completely out of the blue that the Conservatives have got it all wrong. The wonderful country, as he puts it, is sick and needs reform, and the only cure, apparently, is Nigel Farage's merry band of political refugees. Now, if you're getting major déjà vu right now, that is because this is becoming a pattern. Reform has basically become the political equivalent of those charity shops that accept absolutely everything, no questions asked. Broken, rejected, don't worry, Nigel will take you. But here's where it gets genuinely brilliant, and by brilliant I mean absolutely catastrophic for everyone involved. The moment Zahawi announced his defection, a Conservative MP called Neil Hurst came out swinging like he had been personally betrayed by his best mate at a football match, and the man was absolutely savage about it. He told GB News that Zahawi had made the wrong decision, not just wrong, mind you, but the wrong decision, delivered with the kind of certainty usually reserved for someone telling you that water is wet. Hurst basically gave Zahawi the political equivalent of "I expected better from you, and that is more disappointing than if you had just been outright terrible." Now, let us break down why this defection is so spectacularly awkward, because there's a lot to unpack here, and it's genuinely fascinating in the most uncomfortable way possible. First of all, you've got to understand that Zahawi and Farage have history, and not the good kind. This is not two mates from school who have reconnected over a beer. This is more like two people who have spent years publicly disagreeing on basically everything, and now one of them is saying, "Actually, you were right all along, and I want to join your team." That's the kind of 180-degree turn that makes people question whether someone has suffered a massive head injury or simply forgotten how to use Google. Hurst absolutely highlighted this point. He said that Zahawi has been critical of reform in the past. He has been critical of Nigel Farage in the past. And now suddenly he's joining forces with the man he previously criticized. It's the political equivalent of spending months telling everyone why a restaurant is absolutely dreadful, and then showing up with a megaphone to tell them it's the best place you've ever eaten. The inconsistency is so glaring that you could see it from space. But wait, there's more, and this is where the real comedy gold starts flowing. Take vaccines, for example, because that's actually a perfect microcosm of how fundamentally incompatible these two actually are. When Zahawi was the vaccines minister, he was absolutely committed to the vaccination program. It was his baby. He rolled up his sleeves and got stuck in, and he was pro-vaccine to his core. Meanwhile, Reform, and Nigel Farage has certainly not been shy about this, has been making comments at their conference that would make a committed anti-vaxxer blush. So now you've got Zahawi, the man who spent months promoting vaccines, jumping into bed with a party that has spent the last few years talking about vaccine hesitancy like it's some kind of noble cause. That's not a change of perspective, that's political contortionism at an Olympic level. Shastri Hurst kept hammering this point home, and fairly so. He said, "Look, if you felt so strongly about these issues when you were in government, why were you not more vocal? Why did you not do more about it when you had actual power to make a difference? This is genuinely the most damning question you can ask someone who suddenly starts criticizing the party they've just left. It's the political equivalent of breaking up with someone and then complaining about all the things you could have addressed whilst you were actually in the relationship." Now, here's where the story gets absolutely delicious, and this is the bit that really explains what's happening beneath the surface. According to sources who spoke to GB News, Zahawi tried to get a peerage, not once, not twice, but several times. He was essentially asking the Conservative Party, "Can I sit in the House of Lords for the rest of my life and enjoy a nice pension?" And the answer came back swift and decisive: no, absolutely not. Why? Because Zahawi was sacked from his previous role over what can only be described as dodgy tax affairs. He was sacked. The man had skeletons in his closet, and the Conservatives were not about to give him a shiny new crown and a cushion in the Lords. So what happened next is absolutely transparent, and the political class all knew it immediately. When the peerage door got slammed in his face, Zahawi apparently thought to himself, well, if the Conservatives won't have me, and I clearly have a problem with being cast aside, perhaps I should find a party that will take me regardless of my baggage. And that party naturally was Reform, because Reform, bless them, has become the ultimate dumping ground for Conservative rejects, failed ministers, and people who have had their wrists slapped for various misdemeanors. It's like they have no standards whatsoever. None. The doors are open. The welcome mat is out. Bring your controversies. Bring your questionable decisions. Bring whatever it is that got you in trouble with the Conservatives. Reform simply doesn't seem to care. One source summed this up perfectly when they told GB News, "His defection tells you everything you need to know about Reform being a repository for disgraced politicians. That's not a burn, that's a full-on incineration. Reform is not building anything new. They're not crafting some bold new vision for British politics. They're literally collecting the political equivalent of damaged goods and hoping that if they stick them all together, something coherent might emerge. Spoiler alert, it usually doesn't." Now, there was one interesting voice in all of this chaos, and that was GB News political editor Christopher Hope, who actually came out in defense of Zahawi, and fair play to him. Hope made some reasonable points. He said Zahawi is a great communicator, very articulate, genuinely talented as a politician, and he has an incredible personal story, arriving in Britain from Iraq and building a life here. Hope is not wrong about any of that. Zahawi is objectively good at talking about things. He's charismatic, he's sharp, he's everything that Reform claims to want in terms of actual political talent. But, and this is a massive but, talent alone doesn't make up for the fact that the party he's joining seems to have no consistent ideology, no clear direction, and is basically functioning as a halfway house for Conservative rejects. Here's the thing that really gets under the skin of people like Shastri Hurst and why his criticism was so pointed. It suggests that Reform doesn't actually have faith in its own ideas. If Reform genuinely believed in its vision for Britain, if it truly had the revolutionary ideas that Nigel Farage claims, it wouldn't need to raid the Conservative Party for veteran politicians. Instead, what is Reform actually doing? It's basically saying we can't find our own people, so we're going to poach former Tories and rebrand them as Reform revolutionaries. That's not innovation, that's laziness dressed up as pragmatism. Shastri Hurst was particularly cutting when he said this whole business harks back to a bygone era, which doesn't serve the Reform movement any good whatsoever. And he's got a point. This makes Reform look like a theme park version of the Conservative Party. All the familiar faces, none of the institutional credibility, and arguably worse optics, because now you've got all these disgraced former ministers suddenly discovering they believe in Reform's vision. It makes you wonder whether they actually changed their minds or whether they just changed their priorities the moment the career ladder stopped climbing.
The broader picture here is genuinely important for understanding modern British politics. We're watching in real time as the Conservative Party splinters, as discontented former members seek out new homes, and as Reform UK gladly welcomes them with open arms, because frankly they need all the help they can get. But every time someone like Zahawi defects, it raises questions about whether reform is a genuine political movement with real ideas, or whether it's just a convenient landing pad for politicians whose sell-by dates have expired at their previous address. What makes this whole saga so fascinating is that everyone involved knows exactly what's happening. Zahawi knows that his peerage was never coming. The Conservatives know that their rejects are running to Reform, and Reform knows that they're perceived as a dumping ground but are determined to make the most of it anyway. It's all happening in plain sight, with everyone pretending it's something other than what it obviously is. So, as we watch this political drama continue to unfold, one thing is absolutely certain. British politics has become so absurd that satire has officially retired. Reality has won. Nadhim Zahawi has joined Reform UK